Welcome to Between Authors. I am your host, author Adrian Lopez. What is it that excites us as a reader? It's finding those books or authors that you may never have heard of, sort of like the treasure hunt for a reader. The goal from my podcast is to bring to you those authors or books that you may never have seen, but may be the treasure you've been searching for all along. Today on episode 37, I bring to you author Olivia Linden. We're going to go over a little bit about herself, what she's published, what she's working on, and maybe what her goals are for the future. Welcome to the show, Olivia.
Thank you, Adrian. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you here today as well. Why don't we get started? Why don't you do a little introduction to yourself for the viewers?
Okay. Well, I've been writing for almost all of my life. I started writing in third grade, but I published my first book back in 2013. So um, I love reading and writing,
Yep.
Those are like my two passions. And I've published about 11 books. Some of them were co-authored with others. I've done box sets. I've kind of tried a lot of different things, but right now I'm trying to focus on writing more consistently, so I'm trying to publish at least 3 books a year, more if I can. And I'm a mother. I have a 21-year-old, a project manager. So it's always so hard to talk about yourself. Like, even if I can have it all planned out and I'm still going to be like, I don't know who I am. So
yeah, usually you're like, I don't even know if they're interested in that part.
It's like, do you care?
But it's great really for the viewers because they get a feel for the readers to feel for the author, right?
Yeah.
Because it's really that foundation of the author, of what makes the author, right? How you grew up, what you do for a living,
Right.
your current environment, everything that makes you, right? And your voice as you write. So it really is all kind of important.
No, it is, definitely.
It's really what made you, right?
Right.
And this, you're all self-published, correct?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
actually, I did do one, I guess it's called a vanity press.
Mhm.
And I have to say that was like the worst release I've ever. I made like maybe $5 on that book. So yeah, I prefer self-publishing.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. It's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work, period, and it's all on you,
Yeah.
thing from the beginning to the end. But the beauty of it really is it's you, right? It's
Right.
your
Right.
voice, it's your product, however you want it to be. You have nobody to give you any issues of I don't really like the way this cover looks or
Right.
I
Right.
don't
Or
like this ending.
yeah,
It's
you
whatever you
shouldn't write
want,
about
right?
that. Yeah. You do.
Yeah, and
You have
that's the beauty.
license for everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the beauty really of the self-publishing side of it. Why don't we talk about, let's talk a little bit about your influences, right? What creatively influences you? And it doesn't have to be authors and books. It could be anything.
Okay. I'm really influenced by music. There's a really big connection, and even the last series of books I wrote is the R&B series. I listen to all genres of music, so usually there's a feeling that I get, and sometimes I can take that feeling and turn it into, either a novella or sometimes a whole book. And
Yeah.
so most of my books have playlists that help me stay on par with what I'm trying to convey. And I've noticed that since I was a very young age, there's a very big correlation for me between music and writing. So that's what I would say that's my biggest, even probably more than like any other authors that I may read, or because I always want to have like my own voice, so I don't necessarily think, oh, okay, I love Stephen King, I want to write like him. It's like, I love these books, but I'm going to go and write, how I see the world or how I feel things. So yeah, but music is number one.
And that again is the beauty of this, right? Because it's when you find your voice, your individual voice, that's when it's so genuine to the readers, and that's when that connection happens, right? Because
Right.
all of us have our favorites, right? We have, authors or books or stuff we absolutely love, but you're not genuine to your voice if you try to, and I'm never going to say the word copy, but emulate in a way where you try to do the approach or try to do the style, and it's not going to be you, right? It's not going to be your voice,
No.
and that again is the beauty of being a self-publisher because you can find your voice, right? Maybe
Right.
you don't find it in your first book or first couple of books
Right,
that
right.
you will, and the audience will find you for that.
Mhm. And you have to trust your voice also,
Yeah.
because I feel like, a lot of people, they really are concerned about what they think the readers will like, and,
Yes.
my thing is, and I used to be that way, I'm not trying to point fingers anyway. I used to be really concerned, like, "Is this, the right thing? Is this the right genre?" But what I've learned is that I want people who are interested in my style. I
Yep.
can't, if I write something that can appeal to the masses, that's amazing. That would be the dream. But I don't want a bunch of people that are expecting something. You know what I'm saying? I want people to understand that Olivia might write in this genre today. Next week, she might give you something else,
Yep.
but you enjoy the way I write. So you'll be open to reading it.
Yeah. And that's, that was kind of the approach I took too, because, one of the things, and again, I'm not saying anything's right or wrong, but one of the things I
Right.
always notice too is that a lot of authors like to really fully describe something, right? And you sometimes have a page or two just describing an entryway or something you're doing, and it's beautiful the way it's done. But a lot of times, I was saying, because I'm one that I just like to get into something, right, when I'm working or whatever. And a
Right.
lot of times I was saying, I love the way it's written, but was it necessary? Did I need 2 pages to really say this rickety old door that I walked through, was barely holding
Right.
on? Did I need the 2 pages for that, right? And that's, again, you take that chance, because I write in a way, because I originally wanted to be a teacher, and I have a way of explaining things that are easy for all to understand,
Mhm.
rather than a specific group and you have to like re-explain it. And I
Right.
wanted to do that in my writing, where you get everything across and you're explaining it, but it's not extended, right? It's in a way where the vocabulary doesn't have to be looked up. Yeah, sure,
Mhm.
I could use it, and
Digestible.
I
Yeah.
have it, right? But that limits your readers when you sometimes they're like, I'm just not even going to go after that. And I didn't want to do that, right? I wanted to come, and you take a chance, because maybe a lot of readers are like, this is not descriptive enough. This is not really, I wanted more.
Mhm.
And I wanted to do it in a way, hopefully, like you're saying, there's other readers that like want that side of it, right? They
Right.
want where they have it all, but it's more simplistic. It's walking you
Exactly.
through. And I appreciate, so I appreciate you doing that too, because I appreciate when people do it in a different way, because it doesn't have to be all the same, right?
Right, right,
You're never gonna please 100% of the people, and you
right.
always have a bunch of people that are like, I wish this would happen, and it's a beautiful thing when somebody gives them that version, right? So I do
Right.
appreciate somebody like you that does do that.
And if you think about it, all of the big influencers, they really have a unique voice. You
Hmm.
like certain authors because their books have a certain feel or a certain voice. So, you just have to believe that you can also do the same thing. You have to, and that's really what it is, like believing in yourself and really understanding what you're doing. I think a lot of writers tend to downplay what we do. It's a lot of people write books, but not a lot of people can write a good book.
Yeah,
Not a lot of people can write a lot of books. So, just taking up the craft and sitting with yourself and saying, I want to do this in itself is a great accomplishment. Whether you publish that book or whether you keep it for yourself or, how whatever you want to do. And I
yeah,
don't think enough authors actually grasp that. You did something that most people couldn't even conceive. So
exactly.
you've got to be proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's interesting, because one of the things I always say is, I always, maybe I harp on it way too much, but I always harp on finding your voice as an author, right? But
Mhm.
the beauty of it really is that I don't care if it's music or if it's books, movies, whatever. There is an audience for every voice, right?
Right.
Your voice has an audience. Now, the key, right, or the challenge for any artist, author, whatever, is matching or finding that audience for your voice, right? And that's what the struggle is for a lot of us, is getting the eyes on the product.
Definitely.
But
Definitely.
every voice is valid, right? Every voice is valid. And what I've grown to learn and really appreciate is how talented the indie authors are, right? They're so talented, but there's so much, because you do have some of the bad apples that have gone the wrong way. You have the
Yeah,
ones that, do ghostwriting or AI to just pump out book after book, right?
right,
So, but then you get lumped in with that. But there's so many indie authors, which is why I did this, that are so talented. And skill and talent is not determined by if you're traditionally published, right? Because
certainly
traditional
not.
published is one person that has to approve it. And again, you're never going to appeal to everybody, right? And
Right,
I always want, you know, younger writers or writers that want to try this to understand that don't think that, not getting accepted when you're querying or any of that is a knock against your skill or your talent. It
right,
isn't. It is not. And when you come unique, when you come with your own voice that maybe hasn't been seen, you're definitely going to have a lot harder time getting picked because they're not going to understand it, right? And
right,
again, it's not saying it's not valid. It's probably, more valid than a lot of the ones that are just cookie cutters and constantly getting kicked out. But it's again having the patience or, like you said, the belief and confidence in yourself of your voice. Um, it's interesting you mentioned that about music because again, I love music too. 80s, 90s R&B, 70s R&B,
mhm,
all
mhm,
of it actually, I absolutely love. There's a thing that I saw a lot of people or some other authors doing, and I don't know if you did this, but have you done where there's some authors that do a Spotify playlist for that specific book?
every book.
Have you done that? You
Every
done that,
book has,
Brandon?
yeah, all my books have a
Okay.
playlist. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, that I haven't done that on any of mine, but I did think that was a great idea, and I do need to check yours out just because it's definitely R&B. So I need to check out the
Yeah.
playlist in general.
I mean, I have, and I have, like I said, my first book is Love Triangle, and that one was also an interracial romance. So, I felt like the feelings that came with that book were just so vast that the playlist, that one's all over the place. You're gonna find alternative, you're gonna find like yacht rock. It's gonna be everything on that. But I think this last one I really just honed in on the R&B because I was trying to give that 90s R&B feel, that just, guys singing in the rain, loving their woman, trying to get her back, that's what I
Yeah.
was going for. So yeah, but I really enjoy, like, I like other books. I like authors who, give you a playlist that you can, go along to. So I made sure I said, if I'm creating it for me to write it, then you're going to listen to it while you're reading it. Maybe you'll get that same feel that I got.
And do you is that linked somewhere with your books? Is it from your
Um,
website? Is it linked somewhere through
yeah,
Amazon?
I have them on my website, and then in all of the ebooks, I'll either put the link. I'm starting to put it at the beginning. That way, as soon as you open it, right after the table of
Click right on.
contents, you'll see the link to the playlist, and you can queue it up. And if you want to use it, great. If you don't, at least the option is there. And yeah,
That sounds great. So let's do this. I know you have, like you said, you have about 11 books that you have published, and I believe you have one coming out. Let's talk about the first book you want to talk about. Why don't you give the viewers the name of that book and
okay,
give them like a quick summary or synopsis about what the book's about?
sure. So, the last, like I said, the series I'm working on now is the R&B series. So the first book I released in November, which is Forever My Lady. So I don't know if you know that song from the 90s from Jodeci.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite songs. And when I thought about it, the series itself came to me like it was just one of those lightning moments. And I knew I had to write it down. I was like, you got to write that down. And I was in
Yep.
a writing slump. My last book published before this was I think July of 2022. And I was writing the sequel to that book, which I still haven't finished. It was just something about that one is just taking me really a long time to complete. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to put it down and I'm going to go with this idea because it's just hot. And I wrote that book in about 2.5 weeks. It's just every day I sat down and I wrote, I said, okay, if I could write 1,000 words today, I just want to be on par to just be continuous. And I think some days I wrote 5,000, Some days I went way over that. So that's how I kind of knew, like, all right, this is what I want to focus on now. So it's going to be 4 books in the series, and each one is going to be centered around a different R&B song and a different couple in an overall friends group. So yeah, it's like they all went to college together, and as they get older, you see people pairing up that didn't like each other before, people who have had secret relationships the whole time. So it's just like one of those, every book gives you little gems that you're going to see come alive in the next book, but you can also read them standalone. So if you see my next one coming out next week, Given a Chance, if you read that one by itself, you can still enjoy it, because I have ARC readers who didn't read the first one and they're like, oh, this is great. We don't feel like we're missing anything. So I'm like, all right, good. So that's my goal, is to have each book be a standalone. But if you read the whole series, then you're just going to get that whole friends, evolution vibe.
Yeah. And that's a beautiful way to approach it for that reason, because, you would hope they would read the whole series, but that's not always guaranteed, because some readers may find, whether it's a post or whether it's something that they see, and they may not have known of book 1, or maybe book 1 and 2 if they see book 3. So that's a beautiful way to do it, where you do have a full collection, but you can read each and not really miss anything.
Exactly. And also, just from doing a series before, I've had a lot of people, they run out of gas. Not a lot of people can stick around for 2, 3, 4 books. They love the first one. And usually the first one is going to be very tantalizing. And then you're going to get more of the story in the second. If it's third, then it'll finish up. When it's a standalone, you get that hit every time. You don't have to worry about, some people, they just want that hit. They don't want to read, well, in the in-between time, especially like when you're trying to get to the happy ending, they want their happy ending now.
Yep.
So I said, okay, I'm going to, focus on trying to see if I can do that, 4 times in a row.
Yeah. I really think that's a great approach. I really do think, because you're right. As you were saying, you're having trouble, writing the second book for that one. There may be readers the same thing. They're like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this again.
You were great after the first book,
I loved it, but I need something else. I want to go a different approach right now, right? So it's a good way to do it, because you are keeping them in it, but you're not really keeping them in it, and that's a very good approach towards it.
Right. You keep them in the world, but give them some variety. Give them a different storyline.
Yep. So in this book, did you have a favorite scene in the book? Something you just absolutely loved about it?
Okay. So in Forever My Lady, my favorite scene, I would have to say, is the girlfriends were all talking. Actually, there's 2 scenes. They go neck and neck. The girlfriends were all talking, and they're very funny. They joke a lot. So I had a lot of fun writing that scene. Like, it's me writing it, and then when I read it back, I'm laughing, because I'm like, oh, this is really funny. This is cute. And then there was a scene where it's a second chance romance, and they were high school sweethearts. They've been broken up for about 8 years. So that moment when they both kind of realized that they still had feelings for each other, that was really that was a heartwarming moment for me. And I really enjoyed creating that one. So those were my 2 favorite scenes.
Okay. On the opposite side of that, did you have a hard scene? And it could be how the scene came together. It could be maybe it pulled from something that was just difficult to write about. However you want to approach that.
So kind of talking about what you said, about getting into the books and knowing what you're writing about. I wrote a scene towards the end of the book where the main male character's father had a stroke. So that was kind of hard, because I didn't want to be flippant and just start writing stuff that didn't make any sense, because if somebody else has experienced that or knows someone, they're going to know right away, that's not what happens when, I didn't want to make it too serious, and I didn't want to, downplay it. So that one took me a little bit of time, and only also because I wanted to control how emotional that scene was. I didn't want it to be too triggering, but again, I didn't want it to be too watered down where it just didn't make sense as to why it was there. So, and then I always struggle with the end of my stories. After the climax, I'm like, all right, the fun part's over. We're done. And it's like, oh, I got to wrap this up. Like, where do I stop? Where does it end? So that's the end of the book is always like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
And then you did mention a little bit about it, about the scene with the stroke, but did you do any specific research?
Yeah, I definitely looked up, the difference between having a stroke and a heart attack. I was like, all right, did he have a heart attack or did he have a stroke? And then what secondary conditions might come with that, because I didn't want it to be debilitating, but just something that made him kind of stop and say, all right, I got to switch lanes, in my life. So I really looked it all up, what the process is in the hospital, the language, what it's called, certain forms that you fill out, and, the process of the doctors coming back and getting you from the waiting room. I just wanted to make sure that, it all made sense.
Yeah, and that's a great point you made, because, like you said, you didn't want to go too heavy into it, but at the same point, you just didn't want to gloss over it either, because
Right.
even though it may not be, a huge part of the main characters, it affects them, right? It's something that is going to make something happen from of it, whether it slows down the progression of their love story,
Right,
or changes the direction, the path they were going on. It is an important part, right? And it's important that you actually took the time to do that, because readers will find that, right? That, it's crazy, but
yes.
there will be one reader that goes, wait a minute, this is not how it works. And
Exactly. There's
then you
always
take,
one.
yeah, and you take them out of the story, right? Because they're like, they just don't want to read anymore, because they're like, this is
Right, they get
ridiculous.
really irritated. Yeah, they're just like, "What? What is this?" And, I've seen plenty of posts of readers throwing their book across the room and, DNFing because they just got totally, turned off by the story. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's always important to do that. It's a good habit, even if it's just a little.
right.
It's important. It really is important to put in there. So, do you want to talk about the upcoming book, the one that's
Yeah.
releasing?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that one. What's the name of that one?
So book 2 in the R&B series is called Given a Chance, and
Okay.
that's the older Babyface song. I think maybe that might even be from the late 80s or early 90s. And it's a friends to lovers. So of course, one of the friends always knew that they had feelings for, one, but the other one had other life things going on, totally oblivious to it. And then when they were both single, didn't think it was the right time,
Yeah.
and then didn't trust it for. So it's just a progression of their friendship, and one of them realizing that there may be a little bit more than friendship here, and the other one trying to convince that, okay, I am worthy, you can trust me, and because we are friends, I'm going to be there for you in a way maybe that somebody else couldn't be.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I really enjoyed writing this book. I didn't think I just didn't expect that it would feel as good as it did to write it. It was so strange, but I really fell in love with the characters in this book.
So let me ask you this question then. Are you, or two parts to this question. Are you a plotter, right? Do you outline the books? And if you are, and you did do that, did you stay with it, or did the story kind of just take it? Like, yeah, which they always do, right?
I always plot everything because, like I said, I get the idea so vividly, but I already know it's never going to be the first thing that I outlined. It's
Yeah.
because as I'm going, sometimes that it's not enough. That was good for an outline, but then when you have to start filling in the blanks, you realize, wow, this is not enough for a chapter. This is just a blip, but it's not a scene. It's not anything. So then I have to sit and then you think about it and you're like, oh, okay. You think of all these other things that should be. So yeah, I'm both. It's
Yeah.
plotting and then at some point there's chaos and I'm writing out of sequence.
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And you
know?
just, and the beauty is when you roll with it, that's really sometimes when the story just
Yeah,
flows, right? You just go with it and don't try to fight it. And
exactly.
that's when it just really starts coming to you.
And I had to learn that because I used to get very like stressed out, about the fact that I thought it was writer's block, but I just had to understand my creative flow. I have friends that can plot it out and stick to those chapters and those plots where me, I might be in the mood to write the fight scene today. And then, I'm more in a mood to write the friends joking than I am to write the romance. So I have
I
to go with my flow.
I did that with my werewolf book. I was all over
Yeah.
the place because I was like, this is important, let me do this. This is
Mm-hmm.
important, let me do this. Okay, how do I put these two together?
Exactly.
Uh,
What's the
but
bridge?
yeah, but you know what's interesting is I really, again, it's something I thought about, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I have a feeling that maybe the writer's block is sometimes when you do try to force your plot, right? When you do try to stick to that outline
Mm-hmm.
rather than just letting it go, because when you let it go grow organically, that's when it really seems to flow. But when you're like, I have to get to point A, B, C, and that's when you're struggling because the story, like, well, wait a minute, I want to do this,
Right.
and you're like, no, I need you to do this, and that's when they're sitting there fighting, and I kind of feel that maybe that's when writer's block does hit, is
Yeah.
when you do try to force that rather than just letting it flow, right?
Just let
Just
it go.
just let the story come to you.
Yeah, I'm the writer. I'm the conduit. These characters, wherever they came from, they have the story. So
Yeah,
I can't tell them,
yeah,
no, your story goes like this. I'm literally just channeling something from, whether it's a compilation of my, experiences, which I really don't think so. I told my mother, she was like, where do you get this stuff from? And I said, honestly, it's just like a movie in my head. And then I just start,
yeah,
writing it down. But yeah, I think that a lot of time writer's block, I know for me, writer's block is either something is stale.
yeah,
Something, whether the idea at the time I thought it was a good idea, but execution wise, it's just not going to work. Or, like you said, the story is going in a different way, and I'm trying to stick to a straight path. But this is a story that has, kind of turns, and maybe I need a flashback
yeah.
versus, just consistently going forward. So, I've become over time more open to the process of saying, okay, maybe it's not what I think or what I thought yesterday. Today's a different day. It could be something different,
Yeah.
So just allowing myself that grace to make those changes and not feel
Yeah.
like, I'm doing something wrong or I'm messing it up. It's like, it's yours. You could do whatever you want with it.
That's the beauty, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of it. And there was I have way too many theories, but there's another theory I had where, I really, again, because of these interviews, talking to all the different authors, talking about their stories, how it came about, how they worked through it. I really saw the correlation between a story, right? The story you're writing and everyday life, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that is, as you go through life, you have experiences, you meet individuals that are new, and you have an experience there. Maybe they become a bigger part of your life, your story, or something happens where it changes your path, right? A challenge, an obstacle, or just that meet and greet in general change something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And really feel the story is the same, right? You can plot and you can outline what you want those characters to do, but as you write these, small characters that maybe you really wanted for a scene or a chapter, and they have that interaction, the same thing happens to the character, right? They grow from that interaction. And that's
Right.
why sometimes a little character you meant to only be there for a couple of pages is now a main character. You're
A
like,
main
I don't,
character.
I don't know
Yeah.
why this character's hanging around, but
Yeah.
it just happens, right? It's growth from those interactions. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very interesting the way that really correlates together the more and more I think about it and I hear how authors have written their stories.
Yeah. I have a character that showed up in this second book that was supposed to be just a little filler character. And now she's a part of the group and she's probably going to have her own story. And she's a character that I plotted for a whole completely different book. So somehow she was like, I'm getting in on these guys. Like I belong over here.
She's like, I can't wait. Let me just get in here.
Yeah. She's like, no, no, no. I'm come now. So now
So I'm with
she's a part of it.
yeah, and again, that's when you let that happen, right? Again, that now you have your story.
Hmm.
Your story's rolling, it's flowing now because you allowed it to, right? Now,
Right.
if you would have said no, this character has to be this part of the series, you would have been sitting there struggling,
Right.
going, okay, where am I going to take this? Because something's
Exactly.
missing, something's off.
She added a certain dynamic
Yeah.
to those scenes. I'm sorry, I don't know what just happened. My iTunes just popped up on my screen. Hold on. Okay, I'm
It's
back. I
about the
apologize.
playlist. That's why
I know the playlist is like, I heard you were talking about me.
taking a life of its own also.
You see what I'm saying? I'm not in control here. They do what they want. But yeah, she added a fun and she added a way for me to get more insight from the character, the main character in that moment, where it added a little depth to the scene versus, what I had, which was just, it was good, but would it have been enough to take that scene where it went?
Yeah.
No, so I'm
And
amazed.
then,
Like I'm amazed sometimes at the process myself, and I'm the one who's writing, and I'm still like, wow, this is crazy.
yeah, I mean, a lot of authors had always mentioned. There's a couple of them that said it's really like you're just taking dictation at some point, right? You're just like, okay, I'll start typing. You just tell me what you want me to put
What is
down,
it?
and sometimes what it is, right? It just lets it go, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to fight it. Just let it
Let
flow.
it
Just
go.
let it go out there.
I've always had a vivid imagination. When I was younger, I was shy. I'm still kind of shy. I know a lot of people don't believe me when I say it, but I can sit here all day by myself. I can sit here and I can write or I can imagine. And when I was younger, I would read or like even take fairy tales. And then I'd want to put my own spin on it. So then I do like a little, at the time I didn't realize it, but I do a little screenplay for my version of Cinderella or my version of, something else. And I'd add like my little, twist to it. And I think I was in third grade and we had an assignment where we had to come up with a short story. And I did a whole little play about a boy who was on a wagon train and he had turned a cow into like his pet, and they weren't doing so good on money, so his father had to wind up selling the cow and he was sad, and then the father got the cow back for him at the end of it. And I remember my teacher was like, did your mom help you write this? Like, where'd you get this from? And I'm like, no, that was mine, I made it up. And she actually took it, showed it to the principal, and put it in the hallway for the rest of the school year because she just couldn't believe that I came up with it. But that's in my mind, you give me this much and I'll turn it into all types of things, So
And
I think, yeah, if you have that, you just got to play off that.
yeah, and that's an interesting thing because you know imagination of children is really quite amazing. A lot of times when you listen to kids tell a story, right? And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times adults don't want to pay attention or they don't really listen. But when you really listen, sometimes you're like, that's amazing that they came up with it. And
Where'd you
it's
get
such a
this from?
beautiful imagination when they're young, and when you nurture that, when you support that, they can do anything, right? And
That's
it
right.
really is a beautiful thing from that. And that was great that happened for you because it did. Yeah, you didn't release anything till much later, but it
Right.
nurtured that desire, nurtured that love for that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. Why support is so important and so valid.
Very
and
important.
and support can sometimes just be, that was great, or I love that, or you did a great job. It can be
Mm-hmm.
something so simple, but it's so important, and a lot of people don't understand that, right? and
And that's
and
another thing I love about the indie community, you know, especially
yeah.
like from like your share team. But when you can find people that will support you, and for me support is important in two ways. Support is important by making you can let somebody feel seen.
Mhm.
Listen, I may not know everything that you do, I may not have read the whole book, but I've something about you that I've seen and that I've connected to, so I'm gonna support that.
Yeah.
Whether I loved your book cover, like when I saw your werewolves, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, and then you did one promo. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this book and I want to read it. And whenever I see your post, I'm gonna support that because I see the creative in you. And I don't have to love everything you do to support you. I don't have
Yeah.
to know you personally. We don't have to be the best of friends.
Yeah.
as a creative person, when you see somebody who's also in that creative process and you recognize, yeah, this person has put some time and work, because we know the difference. Like, let's be real. You know, when somebody's just doing it just to do it, and when somebody has that love and that art, I feel like, listen, I don't care who you are. If I see you and, I see you, I'm gonna do what I can. I'll share
Yeah.
you, I'll buy your book, recommend it, whatever.
Yeah, and it really is, it's hard to explain for anybody that's not in it, right? But the book talk community, the writing community, and it's the same thing on the Twitter side. There's a writing community on that side as well.
Mhm.
It it's really incredible how supportive they are, right? And
Right.
unfortunately, we hear a lot of the more of the bad apple part of it, but I would say 90 to 90 some percent of it is just extremely supportive, right? They will share
Right.
your stuff, they'll hype you up, they'll make sure other people know about you, they'll shout you out in different
Mhm.
forums, and it's very important for a lot of creatives, art, authors, artists, or whatever. Because one of the things, and you mentioned again, you're kind of a little shy on that side, but most of them are very reserved, right? They're
Mhm.
very not full introverts, but they do have a hard time marketing themselves. They do have a
Right.
hard time putting themselves out there. They do have a hard time saying, "Hey, look at me," because that's what you need to do, but that's not easy for a
Right.
lot of people in general, and sometimes more so for creatives, right? You love doing it, but you're like, can you find it without me kind of talking about it? And
Exactly.
that's the balance that makes it difficult. And really, that's why I did this because you know I don't mind doing the talking. I don't mind being out front. It's never something that bothered me. And
Mhm.
I want to do this for other authors because I see one, I understand and I see how hard we all work, right? I understand and see that for most of us, this is a side project because we all have full time jobs, right? I know and understand the time you put into it, the passion you put into it, the heart and soul you put into it, right? And same thing. I want to put that out there. I want to, when I see everybody, yeah, I did a specific community for Latinx authors because I know too that they don't get seen in the algorithm, right? So I was like,
Right.
let
Right.
me help get you out there. But I don't only do that, I do it for everybody. I want all authors. So a lot of times I may not even follow a person, but I see a thing, and I'll share
Yeah.
it to get them out there because I know how much is put into that, right? And I know how much work that is and how good that feels sometimes to say, hey, somebody liked this and shared it.
Right.
That's sometimes a little push for somebody to go, I'm going to keep going, where they might have started saying, this is just not
I'm
working
gonna
for me.
stop. Right. And I've had a couple people be like, I don't know if I'm gonna do this. Like even some of the readers who want to grow that platform into being, influencers. I knew one and she was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I was like, no, you should do it. You should just keep doing it and more and more. And I know like in the few weeks you could see the difference in her demeanor.
Yeah.
It's like that confidence because nobody wants to do anything and feel like, well, no one cares about this,
Yeah.
or, because you kind of correlate, especially on social media. Social media is so hard because you will think that you're not doing a good job, and it'll be something as simple as the algorithm. It'll be
Hmm.
something as simple as like I know I realized I had videos that I posted back in 2022 that had been copyright for the sound had been removed. It was something that I had no idea, and that was like kind of holding my account down. So I had to go back
Hmm.
and delete them and I noticed a difference in my views. But me posting every day, I'm like, man, no one now I guess no one likes my stuff, But
But
it
the other problem is probably the bigger problem is with social media. There's too many instances. There's too many accounts of people blowing up quickly, right? So what happens is a lot of people want that instant gratification,
Mhm.
and that's not the norm, right? It
No, it's
takes
not.
time to build the
Right,
following, to build the trust, to build the people that know who you are, see you. You got
right.
to be with anything. You got to be patient, right? And the other thing is, you're not going to be great at it when you first start out. Like anything, writing or anything, you'll get better with it as you keep going, right? Everything, I don't care what it is, everything takes practice, right? You
And
may be very
consistency.
good at it. Yeah, you may be
Mhm.
very good at it the first time you do it, but you're not there, right? Even if you think you're there,
Right,
you're not there,
right.
right? So you need that bit of patience, which is not the easiest for everybody, but you can't expect it to. You're not going to go viral overnight. Your book's not going to get picked up, and Oprah's going to put it on her book club, and you get caught. It's just not going to. Yeah, maybe, right? But it's
It
just
could,
you
but
can't
what is the
expect that.
probability? Right.
Yeah. So that I think that's one of the things that a lot of people have trouble is that patience part, right? You just got to keep at it. Just got to keep at it and just let it, or you got to let it organically grow. And when you do that, is when you have the right foundation to do this, right? It's sometimes when you get that overnight one, and all of a sudden you get all these followers, something went viral, but do they stay after a while? Like,
Right. And are
this
you
is
ready for
boring.
it? You
Yeah,
know? Because
yeah,
sometimes you may not even be ready for that influx, and with all those followers comes more critics. So are
yes,
you prepared for more people being, critical of you? Even if they've never read your stuff, they're gonna come in and they're gonna say things that are not nice, and,
yeah.
are you prepared to deal with that? Whether it's ignoring
Probably
it.
not, right?
For me, I'll be honest with you. I took a break from writing for a few years only because I got caught up. I used to be very big, like heavy on Facebook. I was in all these groups, hundreds of authors in this group, then many groups, these friends, this friend that I talked to, and it was a drain. And also, it's hard not to compare because when you're in these groups, you're seeing other people's successes, right? So somebody that was here with you, all of a sudden they're up here and you're still down here. And like we said, human nature is to just equate that as they're better than me, where it's their time.
Yeah,
Because for me, I wanted, to see progression. But I'll be honest, my backlist was not ready for exposure because I had issues just being self-published and doing things and cutting corners. My books made, while the stories were good, maybe the editing wasn't great,
yeah,
right? I could have done with a few rounds of proofreading. I could have done with a little bit more shaving things down. So over the last year, I went back through all my books, updated my covers, took out some outdated, language, things that, are just going to date your book in general.
yeah.
And now I feel more comfortable and confident promoting myself because if somebody wants to go back to my first book, I'm not embarrassed that they're going to be like, oh, okay. Well, I like this last book she wrote, but this first book is a mess. It's got all these mistakes and, whatever. So I found for me that, yeah, if I would have blown up before, I wouldn't have been ready for it,
No.
So you just got
And
to accept what your timing is.
yeah, and a lot of people don't understand that, right? They don't
Yeah.
understand that it's not as simple as you blow up and they love everything you do. It's just not going to happen.
That can
It
blow up in
never
your
will happen,
face.
right? I mean, honestly, when you go through book talk, what do you see constantly, right? You see Fourth Wing, you see the Akatar stuff.
Mhm.
It's the
Mhm.
same stuff over and over, right? But deep down there's a group that just hate those series because it's those series, right?
Right.
And that's what will happen is
Mhm.
if you get on there, and I haven't read it. It's not really stuff I would read. So I can't say they're great or bad or anything. But when you're in that group, there's going to be the group on the opposite side that says this is horrible, this is bad, and like you said, would you be ready for that? And most people are not, right? Because most people, again, aren't even really ready to fully market themselves as it is.
Right.
Would you be ready on that side of the marketing to kind of take the criticism, take the hits, or know
Mhm.
what to do with that? None of them would be, right?
Right.
So
You know?
you do need the growth, you do need the experience, you do need basically all the challenges and obstacles that you went through because that's what makes you ready for
Right.
that later on.
Right. So now, TikTok is so different from Facebook. I just love it. I can come on, I can be creative, I can be silly, I can be goofy, and I'm more confident with myself now, on social media because, like I said, now I know how to handle things.
Yeah,
Just don't feed into it. If somebody doesn't
yeah,
like you, they don't like you. Everybody's not going to like you. And that's okay.
yeah,
So just let that one roll off versus wondering, oh, why doesn't this person like me? Who cares? You don't know them.
yeah, absolutely.
Like there's
And,
all
and
these
the,
other people over here that like you. Just focus over
yeah,
here.
and the other thing is, like I have every social media because I said I'll just post everything on everything, just see where it goes. but a lot of times either your personality, your content, your stuff is just not going to fit every social media, right? And again, you can't expect it to, right?
Mhm.
Twitter is a different approach in how you would post your books and post everything out there, which is different from TikTok, which is different from Instagram, which is different from Facebook. They're
Right.
all going to be a different approach in how you would do it. And you can use the same post for everything, but you're not going to see the growth the same way and everything. And
No.
you have to understand which is the page, the social media page or platform that fits you, that fits your content, fits yours. And
Mhm.
that's where I don't want to say put all your time, but that's where you put most of your
Most
effort,
of
right?
it, yeah.
That's where you're going to get it fed back the most. And it's
Yeah.
the other ones that are going to drain you because you're gonna go like, I'm doing the same work, but it's just not happening. And again, it's not necessarily anything against your skill or talent. It's just maybe you don't fit that platform because they're all different. They're all unique in their own way. And
Mhm.
it's not going to fit across the board.
No, like I said, I used to be very active on Facebook. I did great on Facebook. My first book, I somehow was able to get 1,000 downloads in, like, 3 hours. And could I recapture that? No, but that was something that, like, I just boom, I had all these followers and friends and all that, and when I went back in 2022, it's like tumbleweed, I
Yeah.
guess you fall out of the algorithm, I
Yeah.
can't get people back. I'm like, "Alright, what do I do?" And then when I came over to TikTok, it was just like just little by little, I started connecting with different people and, people, "Oh, I really like that," or "That was funny," or "That was whatever," and it's just slowly building, and I'm like, "Okay, I see the progress here, so of course I'm gonna spend more time and energy on TikTok because Facebook clearly isn't feeling me right now."
Yeah.
So why
And
would
I,
I,
and I think and I think your personality I think fits TikTok perfectly because your posts are funny. I always see your posts and I try to
thank you.
when I do see them, I try to like them and share them too. Um, but I think that is your platform, right? I think
Yeah.
that is the one that just fits you perfectly, right? And when you find that again, you take advantage of that, right? And I,
Mhm,
I think it
mhm.
is a good way or a good platform for you to put those through.
Yeah, I listen, at first, everybody was so against TikTok and they thought it was just for the kids. And I'm like, you don't know, there's a lot going on. And I have different TikToks. I do something else that the algorithm is so different. The videos that I see under the author TikTok, it's so different than the other one. But even on that one, I was able to, promote myself in a way that I built a following just consistently, where I saw on other platforms. Like for me, I'm very much a YouTube and TikTok person. Those resonate with me, whereas Instagram and Facebook,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, I don't know what the formula is. And instead of killing myself trying to figure it out, you just got to focus on what's working for you.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is the algorithm changes all the time, right? They change it for what they wanna do with it,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't know. They don't tell you what it is, right? But most of
No.
the time, the algorithm is basically based on, interaction, really. It's really interaction, right? Do they
Right.
click on your videos? Do they like it? Do they share it? Do they
Right.
comment? It's just all interaction. The more interaction you can get, the more the algorithm says, "Oh, who's this?" And they start say,
Push it.
let's sprinkle Olivia over here a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
then, if you get some interaction, they go, oh, okay, let's sprinkle Olivia over here a little bit. And that's really the algorithm, right? And
Yep.
yeah, it's more complicated than that, but really it isn't. It's
It's
interactions.
very much what you're
Yeah,
saying because and
yeah,
that's why I like what you're doing. What I've also learned is that this whole follow, oh, follow me, I'll follow you. Listen, if we don't have similar interests, just forget it. Because when people follow you and they watch your videos and they don't like it, that actually brings your trust score, your value down.
yeah,
Because now you have all these people viewing you, but they have no interest in what you're producing. So are they going to like it? No. Are they going to share it? No. And that hurts you.
yeah,
So, this whole just wanting to be big and viral and have all these followers, listen, I'm an author, okay? Even though I like to do funny things, that's not my lane. I'm not a comedian. So I don't want to just only get followers on people who like to laugh because then when I post about my books, it's going to be crickets.
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
so yeah, just that, learning to just want that authentic connections and connecting with like-minded people. I feel like
Yep.
that's more important, focus on the
It
people who.
is. It is because the interaction, right? And
Hmm.
it's really, for 20 years, I designed furniture. I designed furniture for e-commerce, right?
Okay.
So it's the same thing. It's the same algorithm for Amazon and all the stuff. And I've known that for 20 years on that side. So basically, I'm saying I know it's interactions. It's how many times you get seen, how many times you get interacted with, if they comment on it. So it's the same. The algorithms
Right.
are very similar, but you have to find out what the nuances in those algorithms for each of the platforms.
Exactly.
But it really is the same. And you're right. When you start blowing up and have 20,000, but you get 5 likes on something you put, then the algorithms also say, well, something's not right here. Right? So
Something
something's
stinks
going
here.
on.
Right.
But the other thing is, it was interesting because on Twitter, there's a lot of, and it's kind of gone away, but there's a lot of authors that only wanted to follow authors, right? And I go, okay, but you do understand that's not your reading base. That's not the
Right.
ones that really, most of the authors are not making money either. So they're not going to buy all
They're
the
not buying
books.
your books.
They can't afford it, right? They're trying to figure out how to buy a couple more author copies. They're not going to really go
Hmm.
buy your book. Uh, so that's why you want to get some of the ones that are readers and maybe a little bit mixture that you do see that they are interested in some of the book posts.
Right.
But yeah, on Book Talk, you got to make sure you're getting the Book Talk people, the ones that are reading, the ones that are doing
Hmm.
that, because again, as much as I want to support, I could share it, everything. I can't buy everybody books. There's just no way I can do it. Neither can
Right.
you. Right? We can only do what we can, and it's that mixture again that helps. But yeah, it's a little crazy if you had that many followers and like 5 likes, the algorithm also is going to say
Man,
something's not quite right here.
exactly. Or even doing the promote. Don't do it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
again, that may work for people who are entertainers, but I did the promote and that I had an adverse effect because I got all of these views and all these follows from people who have no interest in my book, no interest in reading. I don't even know if they're real accounts, to be honest, because it's like, why
yeah.
did you follow me?
That's the other challenge, right? Sometimes you
It's
never
just
see
bots.
anything
Yeah,
posted, or it's crazy. It's crazy on that side
so
also.
I know when I released my book, I did an ad and I got, 11,000 views. I just wanted to kind of try it out to see how it worked. No engagement,
Yeah,
no, "Oh, I really like this book." I'm like, "I'm looking for readers. I'm not looking for, bots and people who are just lurkers and stuff like that. Like, I don't need that." So,
yeah,
that's when I was like, "All right, you're gonna have to start doing this a different way. You have to give more of yourself. All this little, oh, I'm just gonna throw these little cute, 7-second clips and these little cap cut videos like that. That's not gonna work. So
yeah,
get on here, start talking to people,
yeah.
start
Well,
getting
and the other
into
stuff is no matter how great some of those videos are, right? And you can have some of the best imagery and good little tags and stuff. It's not really selling the story. Sometimes you're getting
no,
it's that little sample as you walk by the mall, the cookie or whatever, but you're not really getting the feel for the book, right? And
right,
a lot of times there's too many of that, and you do need to talk about it. You need something, a
right,
longer video explain. You need something out there to explain what it is, because that's just that initial little hook, and it's not gonna really drag them in. You
mhm,
need you need to give them more, right? You need to really explain and
exactly.
talk about it. A small video just saying this is the
That's
story
not it.
behind it, or this is why I wrote this, or something. You got to get them in somehow,
Because
right?
when a
As
reader
great as
likes
those
you,
things look,
yeah. And I learned that because I'm really great. I could sit here all day and make little trailers and, little teasers. But I found that when people can connect to you and they like you, they'll do more. It'll
yeah,
incentivize them to say, okay, I really like her. I'm gonna buy her book,
yeah,
and hopefully you have a marriage. You have a product that's gonna be good, and then you find a way to get people to say, okay, I'm gonna take a chance on that product, and then we're both happy because they like it. And it's a win-win.
yep,
So that's kind of the formula now. It's like, all right, make sure that the product is, good and go after people that are going to like the product and then that is a more satisfying experience than, hey, everyone buy my books. And, just like my books. And hey, you over there, get this book. Who are you? Like, why would I buy your book? There's 100,000 authors on here.
Yeah. And that's really why I did this. Again, do I have a lot of people watching this on YouTube? Not yet, right? But they can go back and watch a lot of these. Hopefully, your followers see it and somebody shares it on that side.
Right.
Helps as well for you. But that's the whole point of this. That's why I did this, because they get to see you, listen to you, hear you talk, learn your personality, who you are.
Right.
Yeah, it's that extra part of the connection that helps readers with sales, right? Because you're not just the name, you're not just a photo, you're not just those little quick trailers or something. Then there's a different connection, right? And hopefully that leads to a newer set, or it leads to a better connection with your readers, and then they start saying, hey, you should check this out. I saw her, and she had a great personality, she was funny, she was talking about this, remember this song, and I was listening to her playlist. This playlist is great. All that little stuff helps on that side of it. And that was the whole point of this is, again, if I can get you 10 new readers, it doesn't sound like a lot, but sometimes those 10 readers lead to more.
I'll take 10 readers versus 1,000 followers. You know what I'm saying? You want people who want to read, like, that's why we're here. You want people who want to read your book. So it's nice to have a lot of people like your video, and it's really nice to say, oh, look at, my followers growing. But you can't forget why we're here, right? I'm here because I'm trying to connect to readers. So, the more you can do that is the more that it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's what I try to do. I mean, I did the free ebook. I've given a lot of signed copies away as little mini giveaways, or I've sent the PDF copies to a lot of people. Like, just get it out there so people can read it, and at least, whether they like it or not, if they like it, hopefully they do. But if they don't, again, that's fine. I don't expect everybody to like it, but
right.
You got to at least get it out there, right? You got to at least get it out there. So maybe when you release something later, they go, you know what? I really kind of like that. Let me check this one out.
Right.
And you can't expect to make money on these things right away. And if you are trying to, it's not going to happen. You're just not going to get out there, right? So I tried the same thing. I try to get readers any way I can. Say, hey, do you want a copy of the PDF? Hey, it's free right now. This is here. I'll send you a copy of this. And hopefully you get the reviews that'll help a little bit with readers as you did and everything.
And that's another thing, like you talked about the younger authors or the up and coming. Even though we're indie, you still have to have a game plan. You still have to kind of figure out how to run yourself like a machine, So the writing, that's the easiest part of the process, right? You've got that story and, you've got that down. Then you've got the editing. Then you have the proofreading. Are you going to format your book, or are you just going to, leave it? However, whatever the steps are, like what I found made it so much easier for me now is now I know the steps that I'm going to take, and I stay in that order, and I'm comfortable doing each step. So now I know how to format books, right? So instead of being concerned about finding someone to pay to do that, I've learned it. Kindle Create is super easy. But then also the beta reader process. This is the piece that I feel like is really important. If you can get 5 people, 2 people, 3 people to read that book while you're writing it and, kind of give you some feedback. All right, how's this reading? If you get people to read your ARC, if you can get ARC readers who will help you build that buzz, that is a really big difference. That's a big thing. So now I used to have different pieces that I would focus on, and this piece would suffer. Now it's a process. Okay. Yep. And I have to write it down. This is my forecast for this quarter, for this book. By this date, I have to get betas. By this date, I need to get this many ARC readers. By this date, I want to start planning out having a promotion every day, and you really have to start sticking to it, because unless you're lucky, you have the people who can get lucky and go viral and they don't have to do anything, but that's not the norm. So until then, you got to do everything that you can to make sure that you're presenting yourself in a professional manner, because this is a profession. It's not just
You
a
have to
hobby.
take it serious if you want it to be serious, right?
Right, right. So you want to take you want people to take you serious. You can't treat it like a hobby. You can't be like, "Well, I
Yeah.
wrote it. I wrote this thing. I don't know if you guys want to read it." No, I wrote a book, and I had to kind of gain that confidence. Like, I wrote a book, and I know it's good, and therefore somebody else is going to think it's good. So, hey guys, take a chance on me.
Yep.
Versus, I think a lot of authors kind of self-depreciate, and it's like, well, mm, that doesn't
Unfortunately,
make me want to buy.
yeah.
you
Unfortunately,
know?
that does. Yeah, it's great. I mean, and I see a lot of the videos for authors, and I understand it completely. But you have a lot of them of the where they do the video of the imposter syndrome and
Mhm.
all of these. And again, it takes it shouldn't, but it may take the confidence away for the reader. And yeah,
Right, 'cause if
you
you
may
don't
feel that,
believe
you may do that, but don't give, right. Don't never let them know you don't know something. Never put that out there. But and
right.
it's valid. It's a valid feeling, right? I'm not saying it's not valid. I'm saying absolutely, it's a valid feeling, and it's something you would have to work through or get around. But
Mhm.
don't take that because you know customer, right? The reader in this case is very fickle sometimes,
Right, right.
and any little small thing can turn them off, and you don't want to give that, right? Don't give because there's so many different reasons they don't pick you or wouldn't pick you. Don't give them one of those reasons, right? Try to
Exactly.
keep that
Don't give them
away.
anything to
Yeah,
say.
you just try to avoid that.
Exactly.
So I don't want you to go too much into the second book because it's not out yet. So let
Right.
me ask you this: I know you're writing the second book there, and you said it's possibly four. So essentially, you'll be writing three and four, or you will go back to book two and the other one if something hits you to go on there. So let's talk about after this, right? Say you
Mhm.
finish the four books, you finish book two of the other one. Is this the genre you're going to primarily stay in? Is that what you feel your I don't want to say comfort is, but maybe your
Yeah.
wheelhouse, really what you figure you have down, or is there a genre maybe that you used to like to read or that you do enjoy reading
Mhm.
that you're like I may have one in me. I think I do want to try it at one point, or
Yeah.
maybe something you would blend into your stories.
I don't really have a firm genre, and I don't know if that helps me or doesn't help me. I haven't figured that out yet, but I just get stories and I want to write the stories. So I do want to do like a mystery thriller, type of a story. I love
Mhm.
mystery and thrillers. So I want to do my own. I have like a dark romance in me. That's not my niche, but I do have, one or two of those stories. I think romance, as a broad general term, is my wheelhouse. But within that wheelhouse, I might give you an urban book, or I might give you a contemporary, or I might give you a love triangle. So, I'll say romance, and then everything under that, is encompassed, because I don't know what I'm gonna write next week. I might do fantasy. I do have a
Yeah,
fantasy story that's kind of like floating around, and I just keep, as I get more ideas, I write it down, because that's gonna be a whole world that I have to
yeah,
create. So I don't know if I'm
that's a
ready
whole
for that.
different thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a whole different thing.
So
But you don't. I always feel you don't really need to put yourself in a genre, right? Because really, when you think about it, almost every book is multiple genres. That you have your main genre, but
right.
there's subgenres in there, right? Like you said, it may be on the romance side, but it may have a thriller backstory, right? It may have
Mhm.
horror elements somewhere in there because of part of the story, right? It
Right.
may take it a different way, and you do have those various genres that go in there. So you don't really need to always say this is what I do because you yourself is a bigger breadth of foundation in there in terms of what you've seen, what you've read, what you've
Mhm.
experienced. So again, it's just letting that flow. And like you said, you may have a thriller because you like that in your story. Maybe at some point you do have something that has paranormal or some horror elements,
Right.
or maybe you stay in the romance side of it, but you have fantasy elements in it, right? And you can do anything you want, right? That's the beauty
Mhm.
of it. Again, you could take it where you want to. You don't have to
Exactly.
limit yourself.
Yep. And that's the exciting part because, it's like, all right, now that I found my little stride, it's like, okay, what won't we write? What are we gonna do next? So
Yep.
keep it
So,
interesting.
so I'll get you one last question here
Okay.
for the interview. But when you've done all these things, do you have any future goals that you would like to do in terms of writing? Right? Do you have where you have sort of a world in your R&B series where it's not necessarily consecutive stories, but they're built together in a way, right? In a theme.
Mhm.
Do you have something in the future, a goal that you would really like to achieve in writing that you kind of thought about, you've thrown around? And the answer can be no, because again, you sometimes you don't know what you want to do yet because you're letting it go as you go. You're again, like you said, the story hits me and I go with it. So there is no right or wrong answer. But is there something maybe you've always thought about? I really would like to do this at some point in my career.
I kind of want to produce. I would like to take my stories and turn them into, something either for TV or for Netflix. I have a cousin that is into the editing and, screenplay world, and he's been telling me like, why don't you do a screenplay? And I think for me, it's just, I just wanted to get a few books under my belt comfortably before I start trying to do a new thing. So I have all these stories that I haven't even written. They've 20,000 words in. I kind of lost it and I'm going to go pick it back up. So once I'm done with those, I think, yeah, I would love to either write professionally, or produce, even maybe
Yeah.
direct,
And,
I'd
and,
like to
and
branch into that.
yeah, and screenplay is a different animal in itself as well, right? So
Hmm.
kind of right. You're like, I don't know if I'm ready to do that, but and it's not saying you can't, right? I,
Right.
I I would think you have the skill and talent to do it, but it's a different animal, right? It's a different way of writing. It's a different way of approaching it.
Exactly.
And like you said, you have all these stories. Would you be able to put all those in hold to do that? Because it's a completely different path to do that. And it's not, I don't even know if anybody successfully has done both where you're like, I'm writing this screenplay and I'm writing this book
I don't
because
think
it's two
so.
completely hacks, right? But
Yeah.
that does sound like something that would make sense, right? Because I can't say I haven't read your books. I can't say that I know inherently, but I do feel the way you approach them, the way you kind of wrote them and built them through, I think it does lend itself to some of those, like a limited series or
Mhm,
short
mhm.
series or something like that. I think it would lend itself to that side.
I really, like, I'm strong. I have a strong feeling about that. It's something that for, I think, about the last 5 years, because I did another series that I co-wrote with another author. It was the Corporate Hitman series. And that one's not published right now just because we wanted to make some changes. And, when you write with somebody else, you both have to get on the same page about everything at
Yeah.
the same time. So, but that one was the first one that really made me think about it. Like, I could see this on, I could see this. And my mom, she was like, this needs to be a movie. She's always like, I could see these things in my mind. It's so vivid.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's that connection, like I said, with the music, that I can see what I'm, writing. It's not just thoughts. Like, I see this stuff playing out and I write it. So I think that would be easier to transition into, you know, someone acting it out, or, something like that. So,
No, you get the feel for it, right? I mean,
yeah.
when I was writing my book, I really, really want to do a comic book series with it because I think it would really lend
Mhm.
itself to those quick hit stories
Right.
um, with the action and everything in it. I think it lends itself very well to that.
I could
But
see
again,
that.
that's a whole different approach. It's a whole different set of money and
Mhm.
expenses to go
Mhm.
through. But I do think that's something that would really lend itself to that world where I could keep it in the world, but not really be part of the initial story and just let it go in its own
Go from
direction,
there.
right?
Yeah.
And I just like you said, you just get a feeling that this
Mhm.
this could work, right? And nobody's going to know that better than you because basically
Right.
you wrote it and you understand what's behind it or what's in there. And I would always just say, stick with that, right? If you feel that, don't let that go. Keep that in
Yeah.
mind. Know that you want to do it, and just stick with it,
Stick
right?
with it.
You're
Yeah.
you're always
Cool.
going to be your biggest cheerleader and supporter. Don't let that go. If you really feel that's something you can do and want to do at some point, hold it. Don't ever let it go, because
Definitely.
again, regret is so much worse than hearing the word no or failing.
No,
Right?
right.
It's so
Exactly.
much worse.
It's
Never,
true.
don't ever go down that direction.
And like even with you from your cover, I could see the comic aspect of it.
Yeah,
Your cover itself looks like it could be a graphic novel or a comic strip. So, I
yeah,
think sometimes we don't even realize that. We think we were just focused on writing, but you probably had that big picture the whole time. That's probably what
yeah.
it was. It's just
I,
coming together for you.
I kind of, what I did is, I'm a huge horror fan, but all horror, right? I mean, I'm old
Mhm.
enough where I know the original Universal monsters, Dracula, Frankenstein. I know the Hammer Studios from the 70s, and
Mhm.
then all the current stuff, right? So I'm going to primarily be in horror if it's not my children's books. And really,
Right.
I said, I want all my covers to be very unique in terms of, I want them to look like old 50s horror posters, right?
Mhm.
And that was my approach. And that's what I had from the beginning. Even before I thought about my cover, just as I was writing, I was like, I want these to look like old 50s horror posters, because those were just great artwork, right?
Cool.
It was just
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
artwork, and it separates you from everybody else. Not
Mhm.
just keeping you right. Your cover is going to always look different than everybody else as they're going through it.
Right. It catches your
I just
eye.
love that approach, right? I
Mhm.
released my mock-ups today for my zombie book, and I told her the same thing. 50s horror poster is really what I want. I gave her kind of what I wanted in it, and I think she did a great job with that too. But that,
Okay, that's
for
cool.
horror, that's kind of going to be my direction. Is I really love that poster, like those old 50s
Mhm.
posters. I just think they're a great approach.
And again, being an indie, you have that creative license and
Hmm.
it's gonna set you apart.
Yeah,
So like you're creating your own little niche right there where people are gonna recognize your covers, be like, that's, okay, that's Adrian or that's Mr. Lopez or.
yeah,
So that's cool. And
yeah,
I kind of had a similar concept for these R&B books. I wanted them to be, I knew I kind of wanted it to be graphics versus actual people on the cover. There was a certain vibe that I was going for, and it's like kind of cute but still romantic. And so, it just really came to life. I sat there one day, just made the covers, and you just get this feeling like, okay, I think I'm onto something. I don't know
yeah,
what this is,
yeah.
but I think I'm onto something. So I can definitely hear that when you talk about your covers and
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I've seen a lot of the ones with actual people, and it reminds me too much of the old Fabio covers for the old romance novels and stuff, right? And
yeah,
they're done better, right? A lot of the photography is much better, but it just gives you that sort of feel. And again,
right.
you always want to kind of separate yourself and keep it fresh and new. And
Mhm, mhm.
I do, again, I appreciate when everybody goes a different route. I've always appreciated that, no matter if it's movies, music, or anything. I
Mhm.
appreciate when you're willing and confident to take that chance to just do something a little different, right? It just,
Yeah.
try to support that. I always do.
And it just, especially when you're a person that thinks a little bit different, some people are comfortable doing what the group is doing.
Yeah.
I've never really kind of been that person. I've wanted to be that person, but I don't. I don't want to have on her shirt. I want to wear a different shirt. I want people to look at my shirt and be like, "Oh, where'd you get that?" Or "That's cool," or "That matches me." Like, okay,
Yeah.
so I have to accept that.
Well,
That's something that you have to accept when you're putting yourself
and
out there
and
that,
it's gonna really work for you in your writing and in your future because of that, right?
right.
You're always gonna separate yourself. And again, your audience is out there. It's just, can they
Just gotta
find you
get
and can you
right.
find them? They're there, right? No writer should ever think it's not. The audience is there. It's just a matter of getting them together.
Mhm. That's
So,
it. And
but
believing that they're there for you.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I really want to thank you for coming on, Olivia. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the
Me too.
conversation, being able to talk to you a lot more, on TikTok and stuff. It's always very quick little messages or just something comment here and there. So
This is my
this,
favorite,
yeah,
the
this this is the way just to really meet each other and see
right.
how the other person, the other author is. So
Mhm.
these conversations, I just love them. I love being able to do this and find out more about you and who you are and your work and stuff like that. And I hope the viewers that watch this get a feel for you. Go check out all your work. Again, I will leave all your links down below under the video. I'm definitely going to put the covers up on the screen for them to find that. And for the viewers that are watching, if you please leave us a comment for either Olivia or myself, if you have any questions, anything you liked, anything you want to ask, feel free to put it down there. And definitely, subscribe and hit the notification so you don't miss all these amazing, talented authors
That's
coming up.
right.
Yeah, and thank you again, Olivia. Thank you, viewers. I really did
Thank
enjoy
you.
this.
I enjoyed myself. This was fun. I appreciate you.
No problem. And hopefully, when your other book comes out, come back again. We can talk about that
I'll
one
be
and
back.
kind of set it up for book 3 when that's ready to go.
Okay, no problem. I'll be here.
Okay, sounds
All
good.
right. All
Thank
right,
you,
guys.
viewers.
Take
Goodbye.
care, everyone.